project has been done at GTE and together with Mats Edström, Åke Norberg, and Johnny Asper. And has been approved for a 2-year period. The project is still going on. We have just finished the first year. So what I'm going to present today is just some preliminary results. We have some trials still going on, some analysis, and a lot of data that we have to look. And the idea, of course, for this project arises because of the need to increase the methane productivity from liquid manure, and because it is very low, and I will explain why. Liquid manure consists of a mixture of feces, straw from bedding material, and water. And the methane potential from liquid manure comes mainly from the digestion of the organic material coming from the feces and from the straw. When we talk about productivity, so it means the amount of methane that we can produce from the manure, we see that we can express this productivity in several ways. We can express it as liters of methane per cubic meter manure in a volumetric way, and we can express it also as methane production, methane per kilos volatile solid, which is an expression of organic material. This methane production per kilo of VS can be also calculated in 2 different ways, in a theoretical and a practical way. The theoretical way is done by based on the composition of the manure, and it's mainly how much carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids we have in the manure. In turn, we can then calculate how much carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen we have. And by using the formula, the Boswell formula, then we can make a calculation of the amount of methane that can be produced, but assuming that all the organic material has been converted into methane. Then we have the practical methane production, which is the one that we do at the lab. So we incubate the samples, liquid manure or some other substrate, and we calculate how much methane is produced in reality. What we always see is that, of course, the theoretical way of calculating methane is always higher than the practical. And that's okay, because not all the carbon from the manure or from the substrate goes for production of methane. Some carbon goes for the synthesis of microbial biomass, for example. Some carbon can be also be lost in the effluent, and also some important part of the carbon is not probably converted to methane because there is a lot of material that are very slowly degraded. And as for example, lignocellulose material, especially if we have straw. And this is because of the crystallinity of the cellulose structure, or it also could be because lignin is binding cellulose and hemicellulose and making them unavailable to microorganisms. So we can see, for example, that cattle and swine manure, their practical value is very low compared to the theoretical value. And it is especially lower in cattle. This is some data that we got from a recent publication in 2004. And it's mainly because cattle manure has a higher amount of straw than swine manure, which contains more lipids and protein. In the case of methane production in a volumetric way, we have that this expression is also affected by the same factors as for kilo VS. But we have also that it is also affected by the amount of water. So more water, we will have a more diluted substrate, which means less methane per cubic meter. And the problem is with liquid manure, we have these two factors affecting this production of methane. So we have slow degradable substances, and we have also very diluted solid, total solid. What to do then in order to increase the methane production? There are several ways of trying to increase the methane production. If we have a material that is slowly degraded, then if we apply longer retention times, then we can be able to have an increased production of methane. If the problem is also the structure of the substrate, the availability of the carbon, then we can probably also enhance the digestibility in some way. On the other hand, if we have a too diluted substrate, then what will be important then is to have a higher manure concentration. What we did at the beginning is that we started to look how other groups or other countries were addressing this problem of liquid manure. So we got some information from Germany, for example. They are addressing the problem by applying longer retention time. And one way of doing it is by having two serial connected reactors. So it's the first step, or the first reactor is a conventional reactor, and the effluent from the first one goes directly into the second one. So in that way, they are just increasing the retention time. In Denmark, for example, they are addressing the problem by they are making some trials about. They are trying to increase the concentration of manure. And what they do is that they mix the liquid manure with pre-separated manure after dewatering. So in that case, they are increasing the manure concentration, increasing the total solids in the reactor. And they also are applying or making studies about the effect of longer retention times. They have also seen the longer retention times are increasing the productivity of methane. In Denmark also, they are also making studies about enhancing the digestibility of the lignocellulose material by making an alkaline treatment. If we talk about, if we focus again into having higher manure concentration, it means that we need then to separate phases, to separate solid and solid and liquid phases. Then we have to apply some kind of technique in order to separate the phases. In Denmark, for example, they have been trying centrifugation or evaporation or kind of sedimentation also with help of polymers. And we have also some experience here in Sweden about sedimentation of diasters. So with all of this information and taking into account all of these results, we established our hypothesis. And it is that biogas production from liquid manure can be enhanced in a two-serial connected reactor system. And the first step is, as in the German approach, we will have a conventional biogas reactor. The digestion manure from this reactor will be concentrated by sedimentation and treated with lime. And this digested manure will be transported or loaded into the second reactor, in which we will be applying longer retention times. So we are having the experiences, taking into account all the experiences in Denmark and in Germany and Sweden.